Hello everyone and welcome to my review of the MiG-29 Fulcrum Full Fidelity module in DCS World. And this one got bumped up to the top of my list pretty much because it's the one that I've most been asked for on my Discord channel. Generally by people in voice comms with me, normally when I'm flying this out, people always want to know, is this worth getting? And specifically, is it worth getting over the Flaming Cliffs module? And I tell them all the same thing. It really depends on why you are playing DCS. And so let's dive in, get into the details, and then I will explain my reasoning with all of this. So as normal, first I'm going to start off with having a look at how this thing looks, how it sounds, really looking at this thing from the point of view of a digital museum piece rather than kind of a game element. Then afterwards we'll move on, see what we can do with this thing in single player and how competitive it is in multiplayer, followed by a general roundup and my recommendation. So first off then, how this thing looks, and honestly this thing is gorgeous. I love this so much. The amount of detail that they have put into this is awesome. Just looking around the cockpit here, everything is so lovely in terms of the texture definition, in terms of the detail. The weathering, I'd say, is just that perfect level. It's enough weathering for you to kind of see this as a used aircraft. This isn't, factory new, but they've not gone over the top with it. This isn't something that's a beaten museum piece. This is something that, you can imagine serving in combat. And in terms of the detail, it's insane. I mean, the little details on things like the leather headrest there, that is gorgeous. The dials and everything, you've got these lovely Soviet, analog dials everywhere, all looking really, really nice, really responsive. You've got a little bit of shaking on them as the aircraft is moving around. Everything is just really popping here. And of course we do have the pilot model, and it is a really, really nice pilot model here that, you've got the soft movement physics, really nice animation, of course the beautiful wristwatch here. And honestly, in terms of the cockpit, this is my favourite module that ED themselves have put out. This is right up there with what Heatblur have been putting out, in my opinion. Really looking very, very, very nice. And honestly, this is the module that has kind of sold me on the pilot model. I used to basically never play with the pilot model on. I kind of didn't see the point. Kind of got in the way of controls. Here though, I love this thing, especially in VR. This looks so awesome, so detailed, so realistic. Honestly, I have found myself repeatedly trying to turn my left arm when I'm in VR in order to have a look at my wristwatch. It's kind of that immersive. Adore the inside of this thing. Other nice little feature on terms of kind of the pilot model and immersion is you do have this lovely mirror as normal, but you can see the effect of, say, lowering the targeting visor. You see it flicking down, flick it over your eye. Nicely in VR, this covers one eye and not the other. There is an option to make it cover both if you prefer. And we can also lower the visor. Again, really nice little animation in the mirror there. You can see the kind of pilot animation as well. I just think that's really, really nice in terms of the detail and immersion there. Externally, really no surprises in terms of a DCS module. This looks really, really nice. Honestly, the Flame Cliffs model for this looks decent. I've not got any problems with the Flame Cliffs module, but this is a lovely updated detailed external model. Lots of detail there, including things like the rivets on the wings. Lovely little animations of the wind or air vortices as you start pulling really hard Gs. You really get that feeling of movement there. And the animations are absolutely beautiful on this thing. So lovely opening, closing of the air brakes, really nice smooth motion there. The landing gear animation also absolutely beautiful, so smooth, so nice. Much better than some of the kind of early DCS offerings where landing gear animation's a bit clunky. Here that just looks absolutely gorgeous. In terms of sound, it is sounding pretty nice inside and outside. I got no complaints there. Inside you definitely hear the engines, particularly when they are being pushed.
Springfield 1, passing waypoint 11 at 4,500.
There's a really nice effect when you are pulling hard enough to get those air vortices over your wings. You can hear the air outside, which is a really nice little feature. I'm not a fan of exactly how the RWR sounds, but that is not a module issue, that is a Soviet engineering issue. It is a very obnoxious beeping, and there is a little bit of a bug right now where the friendly sounds do love to lock you, and so you're gonna have to kind of get used to this thing beeping at you a lot. Gun sounds, though, are nice and chunky, along with a little bit of vibration in the aircraft, which is really, really nice. Externally, this thing is sounding absolutely awesome as well. Let's just rotate ourselves a little bit behind so we can actually hear this thing, since I'm going supersonic right now. Gun in particular in third person there. Absolutely wonderful. So I'd say, as a digital museum piece, if you just love this aircraft and you just want to get the closest you can to sitting in a flying one, yeah, this is absolutely awesome. In terms of what you can actually do with this in DCS, then, starting off with single player, yeah, we're a little bit limited here. In terms of the training missions, there really, really aren't many. You've got basic cold start takeoff, all wrapped up in one, some basic things about flight and radio navigation, and then just one mission here on how to use the radar. It's a lot of systems are not explained here. You can't learn how to fly this thing fully with the in-game training missions. There are a handful of instant action missions available, not really many. You've got your normal cold start takeoff flights. You got a dogfight and intercept. The intercept missions are a bit weird, I've found on this. They are very, very long range for instant action, bit hard to actually find what's going on there. Got some nice variation on the Cold War Germany. Interestingly, a few on the Nevada map. but then nothing on Persian Gulf, Sinai, Syria. So there is a lot there that there just isn't a lot in terms of the actual full missions that they've got. Again, it's not a great amount. We've got kind of a staggered set of missions here, forming a sort of campaign. Georgia 2008, not very long, 6 missions, just showing off a few different things. It's okay, but it's only for Caucasus. It's the only ones you get built in there. And not surprising based on that, there is no full campaign available right now. That's all really coming about from the fact this thing is pretty new as modules go. It is still in early access. It's only been out for a little bit, quite new in terms of DCS modules. And so there just hasn't been a lot of time there fleshing out the single player. Of course, you can make your own missions in this. Of course, there will be missions available on the user files that you can download and play around with. But I tend to kind of skip over that because that just applies to all DCS modules. If you're happy making your own fun, then yeah, make your own fun. But if you're looking for inbuilt stuff, there's just not a lot at time of recording. So then, where does this thing fit in terms of multiplayer competitiveness? And I'm going to break this into 2 kind of halves here. First, I'll talk about just generally where this module fits into the kind of multiplayer scene right now, and then I'm going to compare it to the Flaming Cliffs module and how this thing compares to that in terms of its ability to be used in a multiplayer setting. So first off then, where does this thing fit in right now? And it's in a bit of an interesting position that it is right between the 2 kind of most played eras in DCS. Generally, there's a bunch of servers for Cold War. There's a bunch of servers for Modern. This kind of sits in between the 2, which makes sense given where it was released in sort of the 1980s. This is either a very, very good and advanced Cold War aircraft or a really, really new modern aircraft. So on your Cold War servers, sometimes this is just not going to be available, but on some of the later settings with things like the later eras of contention, or on Heat Blur with the credit aircraft, this thing sits right at the top of the pack there, very much going against kind of the F-14A models. And in those settings, this thing kind of dominates. It has some excellent weapons, has some really, really nice flight characteristics, especially the thrust for the era. This thing can just climb like nothing else. You point it up, you push in afterburners, you're at 10 kilometers high in no time at all. Equally, it's got a very good radar for that kind of era. And it also has this electro-optical system, which lets you do some funky things in that era. And then on top of that, things like the helmet-mounted queuing system, where you can look at a target in a dogfight and your Fox 2s will slew to point at that target, looks really, really useful. I've used that a lot. Definitely gives you a lot of options for close-in knife fighting, and the radar lets you do standoff. On the other hand then, in more modern settings, this thing does suffer. This is the MiG-29A that we've got here, and so this doesn't come with any data link capability. The radar isn't the best. The weapons are decent. I mean, it can still carry R-73s, it can still carry the 27ER and ETs, so it's got the capability there, but it is going to struggle against things like Hornets. It just doesn't quite have the technical advantages there. Certainly you can pull off some surprises still. The electro-optical system lets you get essentially locks without alerting the enemy. Those R-73s are ungodly. They will just come off, turn 90 degrees and smack into any enemy who is not flaring. And as a close-in knife fighter, this thing is very, very decent even in those modern settings. But you are going to be the underdog there. If you're taking this out on a full modern server, you can do stuff, but you're not going to be the best. Now then, how does this thing's capabilities compare to the Flaming Cliffs version? And there, honestly, this thing is just worse. Yes, it has a radar. The radar is a lot harder to use. The Flaming Cliffs one has that Flaming Cliffs radar, generally sees things a lot easier. Things tend to be a little bit harder for enemies to notch you, and you get the instant IFF. Here, the radar's a lot more finicky, a lot more awkward. The IFF does work, but there is a delay between detecting a target and the interrogation going through and the symbology showing on the HUD, so that is all awkward. In Flaming Cliffs, when you lock a target, you then see where it is on the HUD. There is no such feature here because the real MiG-29A did not have that feature, and so it's a little bit harder to tell exactly what you've got locked. You do have some guidance there on the HUD, but it's a lot harder to pass than just having a symbol where the enemy is. This does have the electro-optical system, but it is nowhere near as powerful as it is in the Flaming Cliffs version. Flaming Cliffs version, you turn it on, there is no background to worry about, you just see any enemy aircraft with a hot enough heat signature. Very nice to pick out targets, very nicely to search targets that you're not aware of, really good at that kind of ambush role. Here, it's a lot more fiddly, and again, because it's better modelled. There is background IR radiation everywhere, because funnily enough, everything is kind of warm. You can dial it down and play with the settings there, so you can filter it out. Bit awkwardly, the actual plane has the same dial for the IR filter as it does for the brightness of the helmet-mounted display, which is weird, but okay. But it does mean you can't just whack the sensitivity down, otherwise when you pull your little helmet down, you won't see anything. Can certainly use it, but again, it's just a little more awkward. I'm talking about that helmet-mounted queuing system. Again, yes, you've got it, but it's a little more finicky to use in the Flaming Cliffs version. Flaming Cliffs, nice and simple. You look at the target, you flip to that view, you got a nice big green circle, put the enemy in the thing, press target lock, you've got the target. Here, you need to kind of keep your eye on the target, keep that target centered while holding the lock button. It just takes that little bit longer to get a lock, a little bit harder to do. Now, this is not a criticism of this module in DCS at all. All of these features are just a result of this being a more realistic version. The Flaming Cliffs version is simplified, and it's simplified in a way that just makes it easier to use. I expect we're going to have very, very similar results with the full Fidelity F15C, but I imagine that is simply not going to be as powerful as the F15 Flaming Cliffs because of that level of modelling. So then, wrapping this up with my recommendation, should you buy this module, and specifically, should you buy this module if you've got the Flaming Cliffs MiG-29? And here I'm going back to what I said at the start. The answer to that depends on why you play DCS. If the fun that you get out of DCS, the reason why you keep coming back to this is you like being competitive, you like flying a powerful aircraft, you like having all of these abilities, or you enjoy chasing that ace in multiplayer, or comparing your stats to your friends, in that case, no, this is not worth it. You will just do better with the MiG-29A, even when you're playing on a kind of a Cold War setting, such as taking this out on a credit aircraft on heat blur. You are better off taking out the Flaming Cliffs 3 MiG-29 there. You will do better, you will get more kills, everything will come a lot easier there. On the other hand, if you like playing DCS to get the feel of these aircraft, to be really drawn in and immersed, where you're quite happy to put up with challenges and hardship and things being weird and things being Soviet, and what you want is something that looks and feels as close to the real aircraft as possible with all of its quirks and issues and flaws, then yes, absolutely, this is an amazing upgrade from that point of view. Maybe if you're after single-player content, maybe give it a little while for there to be a little more fleshed out there. But if you're just wanting a really, really fun, deep multiplayer experience, or you're happy to provide your own missions and things, then yeah, absolutely pick this up. And I've just got to say, the ultimate kind of point here to highlight how much I personally have been enjoying this module is since I've picked this up, despite it being kind of on paper just a worse version in terms of its competitiveness than the Flaming Cliffs module, I have not touched the Flaming Cliffs MiG-29 since I got this. In fact, I'm pretty sure I haven't touched the Flaming Cliffs Flanker, which is notably surprising. The Flanker used to be my favourite Flaming Cliffs module, but now anytime that I would want to take out something in that kind of era on Red 4, I want to take this thing out. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's a struggle. Yes, it's got all sorts of weird quirks, but I just love the feel of this thing. This fits into that lovely era of late Cold War, early modern, right where the F-14 sits. And this full fidelity version really highlights that. This feels no longer like a modern aircraft. This feels like something that did come out in the 80s. And for that, I absolutely love this. And if nothing else, I really want to encourage ED to do more of this kind of Red 4 era stuff. We've got quite a lot of Red 4 in the Cold War, but we need some more modern stuff in full fidelity. And yes, if by any chance, Nick Gray, you're listening to this, please, please, please do the Su-27 and the full fidelity module. I will pre-order that on day one. So yeah, that is my thoughts on this module. And as always, I'm really interested to see what you think about this module. If you agree with my assessment here, then do let me know. If you have another view, if you didn't like it, or you think that this is actually more competitive than the Flaming Cliffs one, yeah, by all means, let me know. Give me your arguments. I'm happy to read those. Equally, if there is any particular module that you would like to see me review, please do leave them down below. I am reading all of those comments. They are going into a list where I am trying to decide which ones to do next. That's being heavily influenced by what is being requested. I do plan to get through my entire library of DCS modules in the end. We'll just take a little bit to get through all of that. And if you'd like to see any other of these module reviews, there will be a link right here at the end. But as always, please do remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.